hello everybody. It's Dan Cavallari, Slow Guy on the Fast Ride, coming at you with another In the Garage. And this is another one where I'm in the garage, but my guest is not. My guest today is Angela Sheik, award-winning singer and songwriter, Boss Loop Pedal national champion, and we're going to explain what that is in a minute because that was really cool. Angela, how's it going?
Hey, Dan. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. It's nice to see your face.
Yeah, it's been a while. Angela is in LA, and we go way back. Angela, we met in Flagstaff, Arizona, years and years and years ago, and since then we've both sort of been all over the world. And and I landed here in Colorado, and you're in LA, and you've been a full-time musician ever since. And I want to talk about your music today for sure, and a little bit about where you are, what you've been doing. And I know your newest album, which launched a little while ago, is called Home Before Dark.
Yeah.
You've been most recently launching a bunch of new singles. The most recent, for those of you listening, if you want to get a sense of what Angela's music is like, go look up "Stand by Your Man." It's a cover of Tammy Wynette, and that's on Bandcamp right now. And it's awesome, and Angela's music in general is pretty killer. So if you haven't listened to Angela Sheik, please do. You can go to angelasheik.com and listen to it right now. You could even pause this podcast, and you can go listen right now, and then come back. So Angela, you guys, you and your husband made the move to LA a few years ago, and immediately COVID hit. Lucky you.
Yes. You're welcome, LA. You're welcome.
Yeah. What's working in music been like during the COVID era for you?
Well, honestly, it hasn't changed all that much. I have because my husband and I have both worked from home for a while now, so we're used to just day jobs at our desks across the hall from each other. Or in LA in the kitchen, wherever you can squeeze in a desk. But before the pandemic hit, I took on a part-time job as the executive manager for the Guild of Music Supervisors, which has been fantastic because it's meant that I can continue to work online and network and meet people. Just met some really exciting, fun people this year through that, while also making new music.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So
it's nice. We didn't have winter. We have basically a sunny day every day, but you kind of move out here to be a part of a scene, and otherwise you're just paying crazy rent and cost of living.
Yeah. So you got the LA experience without the LA experience. And so that's interesting. I think a lot of people have adapted their jobs to home. And I think it's interesting for you, particularly because of the way you do create your music, which is using a lot of loops and things like that, and layers and layers and layers. And so let's talk a little bit about that. And for those of you who are wondering why I'm talking to a musician today and not some bike nerd, well, it's twofold. One is I met Angela because of my love for bikes, sort of connected me with her husband Koosh in Flagstaff, and that's sort of how we met. Was through the bike world, and at the time I was sort of a disgruntled, lonely musician myself, and Angela's vastly more talented than I am, but we have collaborated on some music.
I'm glad your audience knows that you're a musician.
Yeah, well, they know now. I just told them.
Oh, now they do.
Yeah. We collaborated. We collaborated on a track, which was so much fun, and it got me really excited to talk about things beyond just bicycles. And so it seemed pretty natural to come back to Angela as somebody to talk to you about something that's not bikes, because our creative connection has been outside of bikes, so that's cool. But
we can talk bikes.
We can.
Blue bikes, red bikes.
I got a red bike right here. Look,
it's gonna go. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, see, I'm prepared.
Nice red bike.
I'm prepared for this. Yeah. But I want to talk about your musical talents and some of the times that I've been impressed with your music. And one of those was when you competed for the Boss Loop Pedal National Championship and won. which there's a phenomenal video on YouTube that you should all watch. I'll link it here so you can see it. Tell me about that experience. Tell me, how you started looping in general, and then how that led to you getting into that competition.
Yeah. Well, when we met, Dan, I was just kind of starting to tinker with the loop pedal, and I was trying to use it in a setting with a band. So I was working with the drummer and a bassist, and just occasionally using the loop pedal, which annoyed everybody in the band. Like they did not want to work with that thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I started to really fall in love with it as a songwriting tool, and as an instrument, just treating it like it's a guitar or piano or something else
Hmm.
that I would approach with a song, and fell in love with the production of it and just kind of the drama of it and the connection that the audience got, being able to see how that song was built one sound at a time.
Oh,
And it also just kind of loosened my um, perfectionist, because you can't fully control what happens. Somebody's
right.
going to drop something on beat three, and somebody's going to cough, and it's
Yeah.
just going to be part of the song that night. And for me, once I embraced that,
Yeah.
music just took on a whole new life for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I could practice as much as I wanted, tour as much as I wanted, and not necessarily need permission from bandmates to go go go. Yeah.
How did that lead to you entering?
Okay. Yeah, that's right. So, I started looping was so hard in the beginning. Like I constantly had this look of pain on my face, or like constipation.
Yeah.
So I started making videos of myself, and I would just go, 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 just play it maybe 50 times, and I would take the
Yeah.
best take. And I started putting them online, and somebody mentioned the Boss Loop competition. And this was maybe the second or third year it was running. When I looked up the guidelines, they said we need at least one original song where you use primarily the loop pedal.
Hmm.
And I had 10 of those.
Yeah.
So I was just already a good fit for that. And sent in a video that got voted on by a secret judging circle. And
Yeah.
they flew me out to LA, which I think that was my first time ever here in LA. And it
Uh-huh.
was me and I think three other guys, or four or five other guys. So I was the only woman that was participating. And man, I just practiced like crazy for that thing.
Yeah.
Just I would play at least 20 times a day. I had this little thing on the wall where
Yeah.
it still hangs in my studio, rumbling 20 times a day. And then I
Yeah.
was going out to I was in Philly at the time. I was going out to open mics every week, at least once a week, practicing it on people.
Yeah.
And I was a pain in the ass. Like I had to set it up, and I'm the sound man's nightmare because I
Yeah.
still didn't know what I was doing sound wise.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
by the time I got on the stage, I wasn't afraid and I wasn't worried. Looking back, I still feel like I was nervous, but I was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just took my opportunity, and they sent me on to Germany to be
Yeah.
the U.S. representative, and then France kicked all our asses, and he's a
Damn it, France.
friend now. He's
Yeah.
amazing. His name's
Yeah.
Neb, and yeah, no, I mean he was better. He was the best. So
Yeah.
he's the
All right.
national champ, or the
We'll spot you in
international champ.
France. Yeah. We'll spot you on. Yeah, and that by the way, the video is just incredible to watch if you go on YouTube. It's "Rumblin'" is the song, and yeah, and Angela Sheik, you can Google that, and the YouTube video should come up with the Boss Loop National Championship. It's just incredible, and I remember watching it, and thinking to myself, I know her, like it was just, we, it was to see you on that stage was sort of like, wow, my friends are talented, like holy cow. Yeah, isn't it? And you kind of take it for granted when you're around people a lot, right? You know them as your friend, the people who come to your potlucks, and it's like there's this whole other, world that they're living in, and that's songwriting to me in general, right? Is your own little alternate universe that it's frightening, first of all, to let anybody in on that, and second of all, to do that on stage in front of strangers. Um, how do you prepare yourself for that? I mean, where do you go to first of all write these songs, and then how do you prepare yourself to share them?
Hmm. Yeah, well, it goes against my nature, but I get critique. I put it in front of people before it feels ready. And sometimes the response is like, please don't play that song. That is
Yeah,
not ready.
right.
But I had a conversation with getting ready for that loop pedal contest too. I was thinking, okay, what if these guys not seen? Because once you've seen a looper, you're like, okay, I get it,
Yeah,
you know, wait for it to come around again, add
yeah.
something new. So I tried to incorporate a theremin
Mhm.
using some older technology called voltage control. And
Uh-huh.
I had to talk to like people over 50 who knew what that was,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was kind of cool. So a big part of that is community. Long
yeah.
answer to your question. Yeah, just letting people in on my like unpolished turds that are or unbaked bread, before I feel ready
Yeah.
to get response. And you don't have to take everybody's feedback. You don't have to use it, but at
Mhm.
least you have the option. That's
Sure.
how I approach it, I guess.
Yeah. The Theremin's an interesting one because in that performance of Rumblin', there's a moment in there where the theremin comes into play, and Rumblin'. It should probably come as no surprise that there's a very rhythmic nature to Rumblin', and then
Yeah.
the theremin comes in, and that changes everything. How
Yeah.
did you arrive at the theremin, and where did it come from to incorporate that into such a rhythmic song and sort of break that up at that point?
Yeah. Um, well, I was thinking a couple level. I'm thinking about the audience and what they're experiencing, and I just wanted something a little bit bigger because
Hmm.
I have friends that play with electronic music or with loop pedals, and they're just like twisting tiny knobs. And to me, I don't know, it's not that exciting. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was looking for something bigger and a little weirder. And I was messing around with a number of different pedals because the theremin is controlling an effect. And I used like, let me see. Oh, a bunch of different ones. And the one that was most dramatic was just a low pass filter, which
Hmm.
just kind of made it big and beefy all of a sudden.
Yeah,
And when you remove the effect. So it was just looking for ways to be interesting,
yeah,
visually and audially
yeah. Well, and
interesting. Yeah.
that's what's really incredible about it too is there's this whole motion that goes into it where you're moving your hands, and it just enhances the performance in so many different ways. I mean sonically, even if they weren't looking at they would know something interesting is going on. But just combined with
Yeah.
and it's just so incredible. It's so fun to watch. I
Oh,
mean, I have to,
thanks. And that's one of my highlights in my career. I mean, I found those moments in the open mics
yeah,
because I knew as soon as I pulled it down with using the theremin, like as I'm mimicking here,
yeah,
I would hear the audience breathe. Like I would
yeah,
hear them intake air, which was
right,
so cool. And I was
yeah,
so hoping it would happen
yeah,
in the actual contest, and it
yeah,
did. And that is just a career highlight. Just
yeah,
that inhale.
yeah. It was a pretty incredible moment. Yeah. That's what always moment that struck me about that performance was when that theremin kicks in. I mean, and I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly or not, but I feel like at that point in the video, people start cheering. I mean, because it's
Yeah, yeah.
stark contrast with the rest of the song, but it works. It's just it's like a surprise you foisted on us, and we're like, holy, that was
A little
incredible.
random. Yeah,
Um, you're an independent musician, so those are difficult performances to put together usually because a lot of times you're doing them yourself,
yeah.
and sort of there's sort of this whole not, I don't want to say bureaucratic aspect of being a musician, but there's the
Oh,
process of
definitely. You wear
yeah,
all the hats.
yeah. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, what's for you? I mean, what's the hardest part, and what's the best part about that hands-on control over your
Mhm.
career and your creative output? And I'm thinking specifically about a music video you did, but we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Oh,
But kind of give me a sense about what that's like to sort of, I mean, have your hands so directly on your own career like that.
yeah. Um, well, the upside is you're running your own ship. You get to make all the creative decisions, and you don't have somebody saying, "No, you can't do that." The only thing that's saying that is your bank account, really.
Yeah, mine
But
says
you
that
can
a
be
lot. Yeah.
resourceful. Yeah. So really, the sky's the limit in that aspect of things. But on the other side of it, there's so much admin and there's so much expectation for you to be on, every social media and be repeatedly there, like you're a small business. So you're accounting and all the paperwork with your city that you need to be making money there, like that all kind of falls on you and it
Right.
eats up at that creative time.
Hmm.
I think maybe more than a part more than
Yeah.
a full-time job. So I
Right.
wonder, looking back, like could I have done more music if I just kept a part-time job
Yeah.
longer?
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of admin. It's a lot of
Yeah.
admin. But you build those skills and I think just where I'm at right now is trying to figure out um it it takes so much of a certain kind of energy to be a full-time touring artist. It
Yeah.
burns me out. So
Yeah.
I can't be a 100% full-time touring artist. I could be maybe 30, 40%
Yeah.
that. So what is the rest of that pie so that I can be sustaining myself energy-wise to keep it all going?
Sure. What I mean, one of the things that I run into is, and I hate when people call me a creative, but I am a creative, and what I do, I'm a writer, and for writing, creatively anyway, it takes a certain amount of emotional energy, but also, a lot of time just sitting and staring at a computer. And in my former day job, I was also writing, and so by the end of the day, the last thing I wanted to do again was write. Um, and as right, exactly. And so, how do you draw those lines as a musician? I mean, you're working on it all day, every day as a musician. How do you keep that motivation and keep, and I guess more than that, just how do you keep a fresh creative perspective on things? I mean, how do you keep your brain in that creative mode?
Well, this year I've really learned the power of morning pages, if you're familiar with those.
Hmm.
That comes from The Artist's Way, which is a book creatives read.
Creatives,
Um, creatives.
creatives,
I know you and Rachel have this thing about air quotes too, so that's just
creatives.
adding to
Yes.
it. So yeah, actually that has helped a lot. That has
Hmm.
helped get me through the pandemic. It's just 3 pages. You don't judge yourself. You don't slow down. You don't stop. You don't
Hmm.
really lift the pen. So that gives me a lot of creative, like that's kind of the creative vomit,
Yeah.
and then it keeps everything flowing.
Yeah.
Um, and then going back to that pie, like just yesterday, I helped mentor middle schoolers who were doing a project where they had to create a band and
Hmm.
release a CD,
Cool.
um, release an album. And just that mentorship
Yeah.
gave me such, um, I just feel so inspired today to make something because they made some stupid songs, but they were
Yeah.
amazing. This one kid went off about dropping his chicken fingers on the ground. That was his song. And it was fantastic. So it just reminds me there are no rules,
Yeah.
there are no limits. Just be creative however that comes out. So
Yeah.
coming back to answer your question, I think rotation for me is a part of keeping keeping that energy alive and saying no to a lot, um, just to
That's
protect
hard.
it.
That's a very
It's
hard skill
hard.
to learn. Yeah.
Yes, I practice. I
Yeah.
practice on my husband.
Yeah.
And I'm not that good at it,
Right.
but it is very powerful.
Yeah. We mentioned when you're performing the theremin and that sort of, the motion incorporated into your music, and
Mm.
that's a good segue into my favorite video that you've done, which is Bring It On.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, I love that video. It's so good. And a part of it is because your husband Koosh is in it and he gets punched in the
Yes,
face.
getting
And
punched in the face repeatedly.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's can you talk a little bit about what that process was like, and how much of the visual aspect of it was you doing, and how, were there
Yeah.
other creative minds involved in that?
Yeah. Actually, I feel like you would be really good friends with this guy. His name's Jay Walker,
Hmm.
and he's a visual artist. And I came to him with this idea, and I was like, I know this sounds crazy, but I would just really like to have a music video kind of with a clown fight. And I know people hate clowns, so we have to think about this.
Yeah.
And he really helped me take it from there. and just create a storyline, create certain shots because my brain does not work that way at all.
Yeah.
And he just helped me to develop the idea, um, where we could explore the absurdity of life through this crazy clown versus mime fight, and find these moments along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a big part of that too was just calling out to friends saying, "Hey, I need 30 of you to dress like clowns and beat each other up for a day," and having people respond. And there's a lot of creatives that
Creatives.
came out and were
Yeah.
supportive in that way, and they had great ideas,
Yeah.
so it just developed. Again, that community, so key.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible too, because a lot of those projects, where he's like, oh, we're gonna get a camera and together in silly makeup, and it just is crap. But
Right, right.
your video, I mean, it looks professionally produced, it looks well rehearsed, it looks, um, if those creatives, that whoever
Yeah,
they were, they
yeah.
and I think that's so much a part of the magic of music and art in general. So that incredible product to be able to show
Oh,
off.
thank you. I
Yeah.
love that too. I feel, there's definitely some things I look back and I feel like
Yeah.
that cringy feeling, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
proud of that project still.
Yeah.
Um, and a big part of it too, we came prepared, we had ideas, we let people expound on those ideas, and then the editor, who is my sister Katie,
Hmm.
came in to be very important in the end as
Nice.
well. So yeah.
Nice. What's your next projects? What are you working on now?
Yeah. So I've spent all of 2020 just kind of, um, watching the news and dealing with seeing the same people in my own house way too much, and not being able to see my family, and just kind of writing those morning pages and processing. And the project I'm working now is called Sibling,
Hmm.
and it's just kind of exploring platonic relationships and how we can continue to have any kind of dialogue, how we can continue to have differences with respect, amid the current climate.
Hmm.
And the way that I've been doing that is just kind of looking through my own family, who we have very different beliefs among us,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and just trying to expound that to something universal. So yeah, it's just exploration of, um, differences, respecting differences, and finding a way through that
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm. I mean, that seems like a pretty
It's a creative project.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It
It's
might not. It
intense.
might all boil down to like not not coming across as that profound, but that's the
Yeah.
thought that comes behind it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that makes me think of when people talk about music, a lot of times it comes down to eras, and how during the Vietnam era you saw the
Yeah.
protest music, and in the early 90s you saw things like Rage Against the Machine and a lot of those types of protest music, and now
Mhm.
we're going through all this political upheaval. Are we going to see more of that sort of protest type music, or hyper analytical music where it's very politically involved? And I don't know that we've really seen it yet, but I think we're
Yeah.
coming out of a very dark period, and we still have a lot of darkness happening. And so, I feel like there's a lead time for that. Like
Definitely.
a lot of
Yes.
those musicians are now creating the music that will be the
Yeah.
future of protest music.
Well, I hear a lot of stuff through this job I have with Guild of Music Supervisors. So music supervisors are like placing songs in film and TV.
Hmm.
Um, so they get a lot of new stuff, a lot of new music kind of before it hits the world.
Yeah.
And I've heard them complaining like, if I hear one more "Don't Give Up" song, like
Yeah.
just quit with the hopeful song, you know?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like there's kind of a bandwagon that people have jumped on with that, and I get it,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think it's gonna take a little bit of time to process. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm slow at
Yeah.
processing, so maybe this
Same.
next year we'll start to see some of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, I've heard from record labels like they've been very slow to release music, just
Mm.
because industry wise you can't support it right now with
Right.
tours and whatnot. So
Right.
I think
Right.
we're gonna hit a nice wave of new music soon.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
excited to
And it'll
hear it.
be an interesting mirror to have held up to us, I think, once that does hit, and say,
Yeah.
"Whoa, uh, imagine what we just went through." mode. So
Yeah.
that should
Yeah.
be an eye opener for all of us.
I look forward to it, man. I miss live
Yeah.
music so much. I
Oh
bet you do
man,
too.
yes, very much so. Yeah, I mean, a lot of my favorite bands have released music while COVID has
Oh,
gone
that's
on, and
cool.
yeah, it's been a different experience. My wife and I got back into vinyl, and I think that's been an interesting way to sort of appreciate music again because it's very
Sure.
purposeful, right? You have to sit down and listen to it. It's the whole side of the record, and then you have to get up and flip it. You're very much involved in the music itself, and I
Nice.
think it's been a good alternative to seeing live music, which there's no replacing live music, of course, but
Yeah.
music in a way that's not just sort of passively letting it drift into the background has been nice.
Right. While you
So
do XYZ. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Who's released music that you
You
love?
know, well, you know me, and my musical tastes are all over the place, but I'm a metalhead for sure. And
Mhm.
right before the pandemic hit, my favorite band is Tool, and they released a new album, and that was just phenomenal.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then a
I haven't
few
heard
weeks
it.
ago, yeah, it's called Fear Inoculum, which is it's a fantastic album, and if this is probably the best Tool album for you because it's so melodic and it's
Yeah.
not screaming at you, and it's and then more recently, Gojira, which is definitely a metal band. They're a French metal band.
I don't know
Uh,
them at all.
yeah, they just released a couple weeks ago, and it's just phenomenal.
Writing it
Go,
down.
yeah, Gojira, Gojira. And yeah, just start to finish, a fantastic album. And again, there's it definitely is heavy and loud and screamy, but then there's these moments of just melodic, almost like meditative parts. It's really cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
At
Um,
some point, do they pull out a ukulele and sing "Don't Give Up"?
there is in it. I'm like, that's the first time I think I've
Ooh,
heard a metal, like a heavy metal mouth harp. That's pretty impressive.
that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Angela, it's been nice talking to you. Before we cut this off, can you tell my vast audience, uh, where they can find you on the social medias and on the internets to listen to your you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate you listening. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter. I have a Patreon page. What's the other one? Facebook. All the ones that track you and do all the nasty stuff.
Yeah,
But I'm everywhere at Angela Sheik, and Sheik is spelled she-ik,
she
Sheik. Yeah,
she ick.
YouTube is easy because then you can see what I'm doing when I'm stomping on these pedals.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure to put some links below for all of you to check out because I think there's a lot of to now waste your morning at work instead watching Angela's music, which is way better than actually working, I would say.
Thanks, Dan.
And yeah, and be sure to check out Angela's Boss Loop pedal competition video. That was really cool, and some of her new music, especially the newest one, which was "Stand by Your Man" by Tammy Wynette, which you can find on Patreon. I don't know if I said that right, but I'm going to go with it.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
Let's go with it.
Angela, it was great.
You
Thanks for
too.
coming
Thanks
on
so much,
today.
Dan.
All right. We'll see you soon. And for all of you listening, if you have questions for me, at Brown Tight Dan on the Instagrams and the Twitters, please feel free to shout at me, ask questions, give me recommendations for people you'd like me to interview on this lovely show of mine. In the meantime, thanks for joining me in the garage. This is Slow Guy in the Fast Ride.